So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Buddhism for Daily Life, coming to you from Vajrayana. I hope everybody's well and happy and finding lots of useful things to do while you're staying at home. So before we start, let's set a very positive motivation. Either the motivation of bodhicitta to become enlightened for the benefit of all beings. Otherwise, just opening your heart to think that just like you, there's nobody who wants to suffer and everybody wants to be happy. So think that any benefit you get from this morning will flow on to everybody you come into contact with. So we're talking about the four thoughts that turn the mind towards practicing the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha. So the first one, which we looked at last week, is what Buddhism calls the perfect human rebirth. And I hope everybody has a good understanding of that point now. Secondly is death and impermanence, which is something we really usually don't want to look at all, but there's a very good reason for contemplating death and impermanence in the teachings. The third point is karma, and the fourth point is the unsatisfactory nature of samsara. So last week I was talking about the 5 heinous crimes, and I had a granny moment and I couldn't remember them all. So they are killing your father, killing your mother, killing an arhat. An arhat is somebody who has had a direct realization of emptiness. Maliciously drawing the blood of a Buddha, or creating a schism in the Sangha, a break in the Sangha, taking a group, in this particular case the Sangha, the followers of the Buddha, and doing something that causes there to be a schism, a split, so that this group that was originally harmonious is now divided into 2 groups, might be even more, but 2 groups that are in disagreement and quarrelling. So they're considered, the worst kinds of non-virtues that you can commit. So that was in the context of, to have a perfect human rebirth, you had to have not committed any of these heinous crimes. So before we move into the actual topic, let's just sit for a little while and calm our bodies and our minds. So making sure that you're comfortable and your spine is straight. And just taking some time to scan the body. Be aware of your body. The contact with the chair or the cushion. What does it feel like to be in your body? Relaxed. So moving to the top of the head. And being aware of any sensations there. What we're checking for is tension. So if you notice any tension as you scan the body, as you breathe out, feel that the tension leaves your body with your breath, moving down over the forehead. Check to see that you're not frowning as you concentrate. When we do this scan, we need to do it in a very light way, not bringing tension to the scan. First, relaxing the body, moving down over the forehead. Coming to the eyes, all those little muscles around the eyes. Just relaxing. I very much like Alan Wallace's comment. He often says, think of your face just like the face of a sleeping baby, completely relaxed and at ease. So releasing any tension around the eyes and relaxing the eyes themselves. Don't forget the temples. Moving down over the cheekbones, coming to the mouth, relaxing those muscles at the corners of the mouth. Check that you're not clenching your jaw. Resting the tongue behind the top teeth. Coming back to the top of the head and moving down the back of the head, base of the skull, the neck, the shoulders. Your shoulders should be slightly back. And traveling down the back, down the spine, when you're parallel with your shoulder blades, check for any tension there. Breathing normally, naturally, enjoying the sense of the body at ease, feeling safe, supported, and calm. Continue to move down the spine to the base of the spine. Come to the tops of the shoulders and move down both arms to the elbows. And then from the elbows to the wrists, releasing, relaxing. Tops of the hands, palms of the hands, all the way to the fingertips. Again, coming back to the shoulders and moving down the front of the body, the top of the chest, the diaphragm, the belly, the pelvic region, just relaxing. And moving to the hips, the hip joint, moving down through the thigh to the knees. And from the knees, moving down to the ankles, being aware of the shins and the calves. And the soles of the feet. The top of the feet. And moving all the way to the tips of the toes. Just feeling comfortable and peaceful in your body. so that as we move into examining the wisdom of the Buddha, we have a calm and peaceful mind. So perhaps, are there any questions? Are there any questions about the topic last week? And, don't feel that you can't ask questions. Don't feel that your question is silly. This is precisely the way we learn. If we don't ask questions, we may hold on to some uncertainty about the teachings, thinking, does it mean this? Does it mean that? I'm not sure what this means. So please, if you have any questions, don't be shy. So I'm assuming now you all understand how amazing it is that you have this perfect human rebirth. How wonderful. It really is. It's astonishing. And is something that we need to contemplate again and again. It's as if there's this amazing, there's this pyramid, and right at the top there's a very, very, very small number of those who have achieved a perfect human rebirth. And that should not in any way make us feel superior. That is not the point at all. It should make us determined to use this incredible opportunity to benefit ourselves and others by doing our absolute best to become enlightened. So, although we have this perfect human rebirth, death is definite, and we don't know when we're going to die. So we're going to look at this topic, which is for most of us an unpleasant topic. So when we're first confronted with the idea of meditating on death, we may get a shock. I think that's normal. And perhaps we think that meditation should only deal with good experiences, and death and things associated with it, tears of grief and black clothing and skeletons and cemeteries. Often this evokes feelings of fear and panic. And this is because we see death as the contradiction of life, beauty and happiness. It belongs in the realm of the unmentionable, the unthinkable. But why do we have such unrealistic attitudes? Why are we unable to accept death calmly? Change, disintegration, and death are natural, inevitable aspects of existence. I often think, that our biggest problems are very often to do with not accepting reality. And it seems to me that the Buddha taught about reality. He taught that there is suffering, that life is unsatisfactory as long as we are controlled by our delusions. And we don't like to hear that. We think, well, life's pretty good. What are you talking about? But right now, I think we have an understanding of one of the sufferings in life. So the Buddha didn't teach about suffering to make us feel miserable. He taught about suffering to help us to wake up to the reality of our situation, which is that as long as we are controlled by our delusions, and we have to, if we haven't purified our negative karmic actions, then we're going to have to experience the results of these actions, which will be suffering. So the Buddha began at that point, but then he went on to say, this is why Buddhism is not pessimistic, then he went on to say that this suffering has a cause. And because it has a cause, it can be removed. And the way to remove it is to follow the path, to follow the teachings. So one of in fact, the only certainty in life is death. If you're very, very poor, you may get away with not paying taxes. But everybody has to die. So Buddhism explains death as the separation of mind and body, after which the body disintegrates and the mind continues to another life. This is, the Buddhist assertion. So the conventional self, or the I, capital I, not this I, that depends on the present mind-body combination ends at death. But a different self-image will arise with the new life. Therefore, from a Buddhist point of view, death is not a cessation, but a transition, a transformation. At the root of our uneasiness and denial is ignorance. We cling to our self-image as if it was something permanent and unchanging, and we want it to live forever. This wish may not be conscious, expressible in thoughts or words, but it is definitely there. And, it accounts for why we instinctively flee, struggle, or shield ourselves when our life is threatened. And this, of course, is not to imply that there is something wrong with trying to stay alive, because life is indeed very precious. But it would be useful to examine the nature of the I that does not want to die. Here we're touching a little bit on emptiness, And the fault is not in the wish to prolong life, but in the fundamental idea of who or what we really are. It's good sometimes to think about, am I the body or any part of this collection of bones and blood and flesh? It's good to think about, am I my consciousness? And to think about, am I something other than my body and my mind? As we begin to have some understanding of emptiness, or the non-existence of an inherent permanent self, this will actually free us from the fear of death and from all fears and misconceptions. However, this is a huge task, and until that point is reached, it is important to maintain awareness of impermanence and death. The principal benefit of practicing this meditation, which we're going to do, is that it forces us to decide what attitudes and activities are truly worthwhile. Many people who have near-death experiences, it changes their lives completely. Human life is highly significant, as we know, because of the opportunities it provides for our spiritual growth. As long as we're alive, we can work on developing love and compassion and clarity and wisdom. And if we continue, we will finally achieve enlightenment. And every one of us has this potential. Nonetheless, life is short. I remember when I was probably about 16, and my dad said to me once, life goes by very quickly. And I thought, no, it doesn't. A year is such a long time. So it's all relative, isn't it? Conventionally, life is short. In the scheme of things, we're lucky if we live to be 100. That's quite unusual. And 100 years isn't a long time. Death can happen at any time. It can. This is something that we're going to meditate on later. And to die without having undertaken the only work that has any lasting benefit, either to ourselves or to others, would be highly regrettable. That's why we meditate, why we think about death. The present life and all its experiences are fleeting. Clinging to anything in this world is like chasing a rainbow. If we keep this in mind constantly, we will not waste time on mundane pursuits, but we will spend our time wisely, avoiding what is negative. And if we do that, we're avoiding the cause of unhappiness and cultivating what is positive, which is the cause of happiness. How we live our life inevitably affects how we die. If we live peacefully, we will die with peace. But if we fail to take death into consideration and thus fail to prepare for it, it's likely that we will die with fear and regret. And these states of mind will only compound our suffering. According to Buddhism, there is no need to regard death with fear or sorrow. It can, in fact, be an enlightening experience. But whether or not it will depends on how we live every day, every moment of our life. Awareness of death during life helps us to stay in the present, to see the past as dreamlike. Interesting, isn't it? Because the past, it's like a dream now. And hopes for the future as fantasies. We will be more stable and content, and we will enthusiastically make the most of our life. So we're going to move on and do a contemplation on the 9 points of death. And they are subsumed under 3 main points: the inevitability of death, the uncertainty of the time of death, and the fact that only spiritual insight, the spiritual practice that we've done during our lives, that's actually the only thing that can help us at the time of death. So let's move into the meditation. Make sure you're sitting in a comfortable position. With your back straight and your body relaxed. Let go of thoughts of the past and the future. Make the decision to keep your mind focused on the meditation topic for the duration of the session. And touch base again with your motivation. Contemplate the following points, bringing in your own experiences and insights, as well as things you have heard or read. Try to feel every point deeply. Remember, if at any time during the session you reach a strong intuitive experience of the point you're examining, hold that feeling with your attention. So the first one is the inevitability of death. This is the first point. So we may plan many activities and projects for the coming days and months and years. Although death is the only event that is certain to occur, we don't usually think about it or plan for it. Even if the thought of death does arise in our mind, we usually push it away quickly. We don't want to think about death. But it's important to think about and be prepared for it. Contemplate the following 3 points to get a sense that death is definitely going to happen to you. The first point is that everyone has to die. To generate an experience of death's inevitability, first bring to mind people from the past, famous rulers and writers and musicians and philosophers and saints and scientists and criminals. They're the infamous ones. And ordinary people. These people were once alive. They worked, they thought and wrote, they loved and they fought, they enjoyed life and they suffered. And finally, they died. Is there anyone who ever lived who did not have to die? No matter how wise or wealthy, powerful or popular a person may be, his or her life must come to an end. The same is true for all other living creatures. For all the advances in science and medicine, no one has found a cure for death, and no one ever will. Now bring to mind people you know who have already died. The older we get, the bigger this group becomes. And think of the people you know who are still alive. Contemplate that every one of these people will die, and so will you. There are several billion people on the planet right now. But within 100 years from now, all of these people, with the exception of a few who are now very young, will be gone. You yourself will be dead. Try to experience this fact. The second point is that Your lifespan is decreasing continuously. Time never stands still. It is continuously passing. Seconds become minutes. Minutes become hours. Hours become days. Days become years. And as time is passing in this way, you travel closer and closer toward death. Imagine an hourglass with the sand running into the bottom. The time you have to live is like the grains of sand, continuously running out. Hold your awareness for a while in the experience of this uninterrupted flow, the flow of time carrying you to the end of your life. If you were to fall from an airplane without a parachute, you would be fully aware of death's approach. Try to imagine this is actually happening to you and check what thoughts and feelings pass through your mind. The reality of your situation in life is not so different. You are constantly moving toward death and can do nothing to avoid or postpone it. The third point is that the amount of time spent during your life developing your mind is actually very small. Given that mind alone continues after death, the only thing that will be of any value when you die is the positive and constructive energy that you have created during your life. But think about how much time do you actually devote to understanding your mind, being kind to others, developing wisdom and compassion. In an average day, how many hours do you sleep? How many hours do you work? How many hours do you spend preparing food and eating and socializing? Now we have to do that over the net. We still do it. How much time do you spend feeling depressed, frustrated, bored, angry, resentful, jealous, lazy, or critical? And finally, how much time do you spend consciously trying to improve your state of mind? Do these calculations honestly and assess your life, in this practical way to see clearly just how much of your time is spent doing things that truly benefit yourself and others, and that will be helpful for your mind at the time of death and in the next life. When we think about these first 3 points, we should be able to develop the determination to use our life wisely and mindfully. The first 3 points, bring us to accept that we are definitely going to die. But then we might think that this is not going to happen for a long time. Why do we think this way? Is there any way you can know for sure when death will happen? If human beings died at a specific age, say 88, then we would have plenty of time and space to prepare for death. But there is no such certainty, And death catches a lot of us by surprise. Life can end at any point, at birth, in childhood, in adolescence, at the age of 22 or 35 or 50 or 94. We know babies can even die in the womb. Think of examples of people you knew or heard of who died before they reached the age you are now at. Being young and healthy is no guarantee that a person will live a long time. Children sometimes die before their parents. Healthy people can die before those who are suffering from a terminal illness, such as cancer. We can hope to live until we are 70 or 80, but we cannot be certain of doing so. We cannot be certain, in fact, that we will not die later today. It's very difficult to feel convinced that death could happen at any moment. We tend to feel that since we've survived so far, our continuation is secure. But thousands of people die every day, and few of them expected to. Generate a strong feeling of the complete uncertainty of your own time of death. How there is simply no guarantee that you have long to live. The next point is that there are many different ways that death happens to people. Sometimes it happens due to external causes. These include natural disasters such as earthquakes and floods and volcanic eruptions, or accidents like car or plane crashes. People can also be killed by other people, murderers or terrorists, or dangerous animals or poisonous insects. Death can also happen due to internal causes. There are hundreds of different diseases that can rob us of our health and lead to death. There are also cases of people who are not ill, but something goes wrong in their bodies and they suddenly die in their sleep or while walking around. And then there is old age. Even things that normally support life can become the cause of death. Food, for example. This is something that we need in order to stay alive, but it can sometimes lead to death. As when people overeat or eat contaminated food. Medicine normally supports life, but people sometimes die because they took the wrong medicine or the wrong dose. Houses and apartments enable us to live comfortably, but they sometimes catch fire or collapse, killing people inside. This happened, a house collapsed. There was a big explosion a couple of mornings ago, I heard it. It's about a kilometre and a half away from where I live. And I heard this incredible noise, and then I heard lots and lots of ambulances and sirens and police sirens, and I found out later in the news that a house had actually exploded and collapsed. Luckily, nobody was killed. People die in their sleep, coming home from work, going to school, on the playground, cooking dinner. Death can occur at any time and in any situation. Bring to mind cases of people you know or have heard of who have died, and think of how they died. Think that any of these things could happen to you as well. The sixth point is that our human body is very vulnerable. It can be injured or struck down by illness so easily. Within minutes, it can change from being strong and active to being helplessly weak and full of pain. Right now, you might feel healthy, energetic, and secure, but something as small as a virus or as insignificant as a thorn could drain your strength and lead to your death. Think about this. Recall the times you have hurt or injured your body and how easily it could happen again and even cause your death. Your body won't last forever. And in the course of your life, you might manage to avoid illness and accidents, but the years will eventually overtake you. Your body will degenerate, lose its beauty and vitality, and finally die. By meditating on this point, we will develop the determination to begin our work of mind transformation right now, because the future is so uncertain. The next point is the fact that only spiritual insight can help you at the time of death. No matter how much we have acquired or developed throughout our life, in terms of family and friends and wealth and power, travel experiences, and so on, none of it goes with us at the time of death. Only our stream of pardon me, frog in my throat, only our stream of consciousness continues, carrying imprints of all that we have thought, felt, and done. It is vital that when we die, we have as many positive imprints, the cause of good experiences, and as few negative imprints, the cause of suffering, on our mind as possible. Also, we should aim to die at peace with ourselves, feeling good about how we lived our life and not leaving behind any unresolved conflicts with people. Very important. The only things that will truly benefit us at the time of death are positive states of mind, like faith, non-attachment, and calm acceptance of the changes that are taking place. We need loving kindness, compassion, patience, and wisdom. But in order to be able to have such states of mind at the time of death, we need to make ourselves familiar with them during the course of our life. And this is the essence of spiritual practice. Realizing this will give us the incentive to start doing spiritual practice now and to practice as much as we can while we still have time. Think about this. Our loved ones cannot stop us from dying yet. When you face difficult or frightening situations, your thoughts usually turn to loved ones, your family and friends. So it is natural that you would wish them to be with you when you die. It's not certain that they'll be there. You might die far from home. But even if they were present, would they be able to stop you from dying? Although they love you very much and do not want you to die, they cannot prevent this from happening. And very often they wouldn't know what to say or do to give you peace of mind. And it's possible that their sadness and worry could stir up sadness and worry in your own mind. When we die, we go alone. And being unable to accept this and let go of our attachment, not our love, to our loved ones, can cause our mind to be in turmoil and make it very difficult to have a peaceful death. Try to realize that having strong attachment can be a hindrance to having a peaceful state of mind at the time of death. So we need to work to diminish attachment. Our possessions cannot help. It doesn't matter, You've got a lot of possessions, you've got a lot of property, and this has occupied a great deal of your time while you're alive, and it's been the source of much pleasure and satisfaction. But none of these things can bring you comfort and peace at the time of death. Your wealth might be able to provide you with a private room in the hospital and the best medical care, but that is all it can do. It cannot stop death from happening. And when you die, you can't take anything with you, not even 1 cent. Not only will your possessions be unable to help you, but your mind may be caught up in worries about them. Who will get what, and whether or not they will take proper care of your things. So that will make it difficult to have a peaceful, detached state of mind. Contemplate these points and see if you can understand the importance of learning to be less dependent on and attached to material things. Now, even our own body is not able to help us at the time of death. You know, it's been our constant companion since birth. We know our body more intimately than anything or anyone else. We've cared for it and protected it, worried about it, kept it comfortable and healthy. We've fed it and cleaned it, and we've experienced all kinds of pleasure and pain with it. It has been our most treasured possession. But now, when we are dying, that means we will be separated from it. It will eventually become weaker and weaker and quite useless. Your mind will separate from it, and it will be taken to the cemetery or the crematorium. What good can it possibly do for you now? So contemplate the strong sense of dependence and attachment that you have to your body and how it cannot benefit you in any way at the time of death. Regret about leaving it and fear will only compound your suffering. So now, we should come to realize how important it is to work on reducing our attachment to the things of this life, such as family and friends, possessions, and our body. We should also realize how important it is to take care of our mind, as that is the only thing that will continue to the next life. Just waiting for that plane to go. Taking care of the mind, what does it mean? It means working on decreasing the negative states of mind, such as anger and attachment, and cultivating positive qualities like faith and loving kindness and compassion, patience, wisdom. Furthermore, as the imprints of our actions in this life will go along with our mind to the next life, and they will determine the kind of rebirth and experiences we will have. Therefore, it's essential to try our best to refrain from negative actions and create positive actions as much as possible during our life. So it is possible, in fact probable, that you will feel fear or sadness as we move through this meditation. And in one sense, that is good. It shows that you have taken the ideas seriously and have contemplated them well. Also, it is important to get in touch with how you do feel about death so that you can work on being prepared for it when it happens. By working on our mind, we can transcend fear, sadness, attachment, and other emotions that make it difficult to die with a peaceful mind. Fear arises because of clinging to the idea of a permanent self. There is no such thing. So this is a delusion that just makes us suffer. If we keep death in mind in an easy, open way, accepting it as a natural and inevitable aspect of life, this clinging will gradually loosen, allowing us to be mindful and make every action positive and beneficial for ourselves and others. And an awareness of death gives us enormous energy to not waste our life, but to live it as effectively as possible. Let's finish with the optimistic thought that you have every possibility to make your life meaningful and positive, and you will be able to die with peace of mind if you do this. So, thinking about this perfect human rebirth, which is, with this perfect human rebirth, we can reach enlightenment. We can have perfect peace of mind at the time of death and in the face of whatever is happening in our lives. So just remember that the whole purpose of doing this meditation is not to make us feel afraid, but to make us understand that we have this incredible opportunity because we have this perfect human rebirth, because we've come into contact with the Dharma. Absolutely unbelievable. But we don't know how long we've got it. So the whole thing is be realistic, understand that death is definite, the time of death is uncertain, and the only thing that is going to be of real benefit to us at the time of death is whatever practice we have done to develop the positive qualities in our own minds, because our mind will go from life to life, and we will pass the baton, so to speak, to whoever we are going to be in our future life. So, as it says in Buddhism, death is not the end, death is a transition. And we need to prepare now for the next life. And by developing our loving kindness and wisdom and compassion, this life will be a lot more pleasant and beneficial for ourselves and others. And it will also benefit us at the time of death and on into our future lives. So might be you've got some questions around this. Feel free to ask. Okay, so I hope I hope people aren't feeling too gloomy after that meditation. Often there's a lot of confusion around the difference between attachment and love. I think this is a big problem, because we don't have, we don't have a specific word in the English language which accords with the meaning of love in the context of Buddhism. So love or loving kindness actually means the wish for beings to be happy. And then, of course, all beings, not just the people we like. Whereas attachment is all about, it's all about self-centeredness, you know. Attachment says, I love you if you love me. You know, attachment is possessive. Attachment exaggerates the good qualities of an object. And it only leads to suffering. The thing is, we use the word attachment in English almost as if it means the same as love. So I'm very attached to my children. I'm very attached to my partner. So, you know, if we're attached, we project perfection onto the person. This is what happens when we fall in love. Now, that person never said they were perfect, but because of our mind of attachment makes that person perfect. And then when they turn out not to be perfect, we get upset. I like to give an example, you know. So love is unconditional, and it sees the person warts and all. And even though that person has faults, love still has the wish, may you be well and happy. Love still cares for that person, even though they have some faults. And you know, hands up anybody who doesn't have any faults. So I like to use a little example of you know, little Tommy who's going to school, and he's been a little bit naughty. He's been misbehaving, and he's been out of character, you know. So the teacher rings up Tommy's mum and says, look, can I talk to you for a little while, because you know, Tommy's been misbehaving. I'm really sorry to say, but he's been misbehaving, and he's been quite nasty to some of the other children, and you know, can you help me with this? Is there something happening, you know? And so Tommy's mum says, how dare you talk about my little Tommy like that? He's not a nasty boy. Bang. That's attachment. That's the mind that refuses to see anything negative in the object of attachment. Absolutely refuses. Anyhow, the teacher then gets an opportunity to talk to Tommy's dad and says, look, I wonder if you can help me. You know, he's really not himself, and he's normally such a nice kid. You know, I mean, all kids are a little bit naughty, but sometimes, you know, he's a bit out of hand at the moment. And then Dad says, well, you know, a few weeks ago he got a brand new baby brother. And so the teacher then says, aha, now Dad loves Tommy unconditionally, but he doesn't see his child as perfect, and he doesn't get upset when somebody says to him, you know, Tommy is misbehaving. So I think that's a good example of that mind of attachment. You know, when we're attached to something, we cannot bear to have it criticized. You know, I hope that makes sense. So Buddhism is not saying don't love your family, don't love your friends. Of course we love our family, we love our friends, we love our children, we love our partner. What we need to do is to be aware of when our love is mixed with attachment. Okay? And when our love is mixed with attachment, That's when it's distorted. I see somebody has written up here, somebody called Barbara Bell. I went to school with somebody called Barbara Bell. In fact, they were twins. I wonder, it would be very funny if it were you. Barbara and Margaret. I went to primary school in Bundina. So here's a question. Okay, James, how do we work on attachment to certain perceptions and emotions? Well, attachment to perceptions, I assume that you're meaning here our ideas about things. Whatever ideas we have, or beliefs, people die for their beliefs. We need to check them out. Okay, let's take Buddhism. I can say Buddhism is right for me, obviously. That's why I'm a Buddhist nun. I investigated it to the best of my ability, and it made a lot of sense to me, and it really touched my heart, and it made sense. The Buddha said, don't believe anything. Now, I can say Buddhism is the right path for me, but I cannot say, like, if I hold to that idea Buddhism is right, then I can kind of feel critical about people who don't believe in Buddhism. So I'm attached. You could say I'm attached. And if somebody criticizes Buddhism, do I get upset? If I get upset, then I'm attached. So I have to remember that this is a path for me, but not necessarily a path for everybody else. Okay, what's the other question here? Yeah, well, we justify our emotions, James. We justify our emotions because we believe them, but we haven't necessarily investigated them. Let me try to think of an example. Well, it's that whole thing about when we fall in love. I think that because that's such a intense emotional experience, I think it's the perfect example of attachment. I'm not saying that as human beings, until we reach a certain level in our practice, our love is going to be mixed with attachment. But it's when attachment blinds us. So we have this very strong feeling of emotion, this very strong love for somebody, right? And let's say, for example, that I fall in love with someone who's a professional con man. Let's just take that as an example. This happens all the time. You see all these things on the net about. Usually, it's women who are fooled by these people. Who tell them all these amazing stories. So they have attachment. This emotion. They fall in love with this person because he's painted a picture of himself as a particular type of person. Now that emotion is so strong that even though alarm bells may be going off, or one of our friends may come to us, let's say it's not on the net, one of our friends may come to us and say, well, do you know that person, I've heard a few things about that person, and might be it would be very, very good. I'm not trying to run your life for you, but perhaps it's important for you to check up. And the mind of attachment says, you don't know what you're talking about. He's a wonderful person. So we cling to our emotions, yeah. And Buddhism is not saying at all don't have relationships. Of course. I mean, we're human beings, you know. It's normal for us to have relationships. It's normal for us to care for one another. And Buddhism is not saying that there are not people who have genuine love for one another, whether it's in a romantic relationship or just genuine long-term friendships that go through your whole life. That's fine. What we have to be aware of is when attachment is blinding us, right? So I hope that makes sense. Good. So, you know, if we look, for example, when the Bamiyan Buddhas were blown up by was it the Taliban? It was quite some time ago. So there wasn't a huge outcry from the Buddhists in the world. If you destroy the statue, I mean, that's very sad because it's actually a World Heritage object and it belongs to everybody. But it doesn't actually harm the Buddha, and it does not harm the teachings of the Buddha, which are still existing and still available in many, many languages and still being practiced by people all over the world. So there's no need to get upset, no need to get angry, no need to want revenge. You know, this is attachment. How dare you, you know, how dare you damage my precious statue? You know, that is not there. You sometimes see stickers on people's cars, you know, and of course it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, something like, you know, you touch my car, I break your face. Well, that's attachment. Yeah? They're not understanding that the car is not permanently new. And it's definitely going to get a ding or a scratch you know, and it's not going to last forever. One day it will be an old rust bucket and you'll throw it away. So any other questions? How are people feeling about the death meditation, or it was quite long, wasn't it? So it was more like a little talk about looking at these 9 points to remind us that we're all going to die. If you went out on the street and said that, I don't think you'd get a lot of smiles from anybody. For me, the most important thing is that we understand why we need to meditate on death. So it gives us this sense of urgency. Yeah. It gives us a sense of urgency because there's something really, really, really important that we need to do with our lives. We need to develop our loving kindness. We need to develop our compassion. We need to develop our wisdom, you know, and we need to be kind to everybody. His Holiness Dalai Lama says if you're going to be selfish, be wisely selfish. So being kind and compassionate and caring and non-judgmental, it benefits everybody else and it benefits ourselves. And the more we develop these mind states so that they kind of become, you know, they become the way we spontaneously interact with others, then these The more we think this way, the more we're going to act this way, the stronger the imprints are going to be on our mind stream. And when we go to our next life, we'll be somebody different, but the mind stream will continue, and we'll label I on whoever we are in our next life, but we will have these imprints of loving kindness and compassion and wisdom, and then we will continue to benefit ourselves and others. So I'm just looking at the comments here. Yes. So it's a bit shocking. It is shocking. It is shocking in the beginning, because in most cultures, it's a big taboo to talk about death. You can't talk about death. We're afraid of it. And also, as James said, we need it. Morbid, yeah, but if we think it's morbid, we are forgetting to look at the reason behind the meditation. So of course we have a mindset that says death is terrible, death is awful. We often don't say, oh, this person died. We say they passed away or we lost them. And it's just a reflection of how our culture is not dealing with death, not accepting death as part of life. And I guess that this is something that we need to think about. And obviously, from the point of view of Buddhism, death is not the end, it's a transformation. But this particular person that we are right now, this person is going to die. But this person is not solid and permanent and unchanging. How to give you an idea? And we feel that this person is solid and permanent. I'm the same I as I was when I was 10 years old. That's only a conventional reality. So let's look at what it is that makes up a person. So we've got a body, right? So, but the body is changing moment by moment by moment by moment by moment, isn't it? I think we can all agree with that. We also have a mind. If there's no mind consciousness means the same in Buddhism. If there were no consciousness connected with this body here would be a corpse, right? Now the consciousness is also changing moment by moment by moment by moment by moment by moment. Have we got that? So let's have a let me find an example. I used to have a tame parrot when I lived in the Solomon Islands, a coconut parrot, and they love playing with water like a lot of birds. And so we set up a hose in the yard in a forked stick and turned the water on, and then the bird would come and the bird would hold the end of the hose with its one claw, and with the other claw it was trying to grasp the stream of water. Now, and of course it couldn't, because the stream of water wasn't solid, wasn't permanent, was moving all the time, changing all the time. Now, if we think about our mind-body combination as that stream of water, let's say the body is the stream of water and maybe the mind is the color pink mixed in there, right? So the mind and the body are just like that stream of water, changing moment by moment by moment by moment by moment. We label it me, this mind body, and we think of it as permanent and unchanging, but it isn't. So I hope that can help a little bit, yeah? So when we die, the consciousness leaves the body, but the subtle consciousness is indestructible, and it goes to the next life. It'll be a new stream of water, and it will continue on. So I hope that helps with that. Now there's another question here. What about feelings of regret about not having spent life wisely so far? Well, there's nothing we can do about the past, okay? So let go of the regret. it doesn't help much. Don't start feeling, don't allow a sense of helplessness to arise or hopelessness because, we have wasted time. Okay, can't do anything about it. But what we can do is make a very strong determination that from now on, I'm not going to waste my time. And remember that spiritual practice does not mean only sitting on your cushion doing your sadhana, your whatever practice you do every day. Spiritual practice is about how you are interacting with everybody around you and how you are you being kind and caring and compassionate to yourself as well, not beating yourself up. Yeah. Okay, I've made a few mistakes. I've wasted some time. Can't do anything about that. But now, from now on, I'm going to do my best to remember to be kind, compassionate, wise. And this is why I'm going to study, and this is why I'm going to do meditations that will develop my positive qualities. I'm going to do meditations on emptiness. I'm going to do meditations on loving kindness and compassion. I'm going to learn to be aware of what is happening in my mind. And there's all, we can do that. We can do that every moment. A good thing is to wake up in the morning and set a very positive motivation, thinking today I'm going to avoid the 10 non-virtues to the very best of my ability. And so you go through your day, avoiding any of those actions that harm others. At the end of the day, before you go to sleep, you think about things you may have done that you're not so happy with. You have sincere regret, not guilt. And then you think, I'm going to do my best not to do that again. And then you can go to sleep feeling that you haven't wasted your day. We're not perfect yet. We're practicing, we're we're little apprentice bodhisattvas. And so there's a lot we can do. And if we recall again and again that our innate purity, that we are not one with our delusions, and our job is to get rid of the delusions, then we can always be positive. I hope that helps, Lucy. Any other questions? Just looking again at your question, Lucy, perhaps it's good, rather than thinking about what you haven't done, spend a little bit of time thinking about all the good things you have done, because I'm sure there's heaps and heaps and heaps. So, human beings are basically good. So rejoice in all the good things that you have done. Okay, there's a question here. Attachment. I'm always hearing that unhappiness comes from attachment to external circumstances. Well, not only external circumstances. The interesting thing about attachment, and the reason why attachment is so dangerous, if you like, from the point of view of our spiritual practice, is that we can be attached to all of the objects of our senses: beautiful sounds, beautiful sights, beautiful smells, beautiful tastes, touch. You know, we can be attached to all of these objects, and they external objects, but we can also be attached, to our ideas, right? We can, as I mentioned before, if we're attached to our ideas, people give their lives because they're attached to a particular idea. It can be a good idea. We have to be careful, though, that if attachment is a distorted state of mind, I think all this about attachment comes back to understanding what attachment means. It means wanting something and not wanting to be separated from it. So it's unrealistic. Whatever it is we want, whatever it is we possess, we're going to be separated from it. It means not being able to be at peace if people criticize the object of your attachment, so it brings unhappiness. It means not being able to accept that things are constantly changing and whatever we're attached to is not permanent. It's very complex. Feeling unhappy without any cause that you can identify. So I think one of the problems with our feelings is that we think that we believe them. We don't. A feeling comes up and an emotion comes up, a thought comes up, and we believe it. And without investigating. So I know it's very hard if sometimes we wake up and we just feel unhappy and we can't find any particular cause, So I'm not talking about like clinical depression, but I think if we have awareness in our minds, awareness of what is happening. So we might wake up and we might feel really unhappy and we can't put our finger on it. So it might be then we can just look at that and think, it's not very nice to identify with this feeling. Might be I can replace it with something positive. Might be I can think about, all of the things I have to be grateful for. So not clinging to our feelings. I hope that helps a little bit. And the more if we just think about me, and my problems and my feelings, then we make our world very, very tiny. So yes, if we have a feeling of unhappiness, recognize it. I'm not saying deny that you're feeling it. Recognize it. Ask yourself if it's useful. And if not, perhaps you can change it, as I was saying, for a positive feeling, right? And then start thinking about other people, opening your heart, thinking about others, thinking about all the people who woke up feeling quite miserable this morning and have a wish, you don't have to be miserable. Have a wish that they come to understand that it's just a feeling, it's just a thought. We don't have to believe it. We don't have to cling to it. I hope that helps. Gosh, I can't believe how quickly the hour and a half has gone. So we've got a few more minutes if there's any more questions. Okay, so it looks like, oh, hang on. Thank you, James. Yes, it's for me. It's quite odd because I can't see you all, but I just imagine that there's people out there listening, and I'm doing my best to share the precious Dharma with all of you. And I thank you for your time. And I would like to, two kind of bookends that we have in Buddhism when we begin our practice, when we begin our day, when we do anything beneficial, as I'm always saying, motivation, motivation, motivation. So we set a positive motivation. And I'd like to finish off with a dedication, which is very, very beautiful. So dedicating the positive energy that we have generated, so that it doesn't get lost, dedicating it to our attainment of enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I always call that like putting it in the Buddha bank, ready for our next life, you see. Who said you can't take it with you? But I'd like to read a dedication, which is from Shantideva's Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which is in fact His Holiness the Dalai Lama's favourite dedication. And I think it's very beautiful, so I'd like to share it with you. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective, and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments, and whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. And for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So thank you very much for being with me, and enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy staying home, and rejoice that by staying home, if you're able, just rejoice that is one of the best ways that you can help others. So all the best, and see you again.